Good morning. Welcome back to Planet Doug Behind the Scenes for Saturday, July 8th, 2023. It's actually noon. I normally record these types of videos like very early in the morning before the day starts, but today has been a bit of an unusual day. I made an effort to sleep in as long as possible, and I didn't get out of bed until 8:30, and I've been doing some other things this morning, and here I am. I wanted to talk a little bit about yesterday, call that my life update. I seem to be structuring these videos in terms of updates. You know, there's a life update, YouTube update, there's a, technology update, pop culture update. So this is my life update. And the big story from yesterday was meeting up with my friend Daryl for a day of errands. And Daryl, of course, has a YouTube channel, Wander Eats. And the main idea, I think, was that Daryl, he has a new car, a BYD electric vehicle. I'm not sure exactly which model. It's the Atto, A-T-T-O. Maybe the Atto 3, or maybe there's different versions, so I'm not entirely sure, but it's a BYD Atto electric vehicle. I love that car. It's just so much fun. It's the first electric car I've ever been in, I think. So yeah, I've been enjoying learning about that car. But he had to bring it into the BYD service center for its first servicing. You know, when you buy the car, it comes with free, at the first 5,000 kilometers, or at some point you have to bring it in and they service the whole car, check it over from top to bottom, make sure everything's working and tune everything up. And I don't know exactly what you do to an electric car to do that, but so that's what Daryl had to do. And then he invited me to come along with him, and then we were going to do other things, as we did this. The thing that really he knew would excite me was that at this BYD service center, they have a lounge, a coffee lounge. So they actually have a little coffee bar and beautiful, comfortable chairs, and you can sit there and have a cup of coffee while you're, waiting for your car to be serviced, or if you're there buying a car, and you're doing paperwork or something, and you can sit down, have a cappuccino, and so I was all about that. So I agreed. I said I'd love to go on this trip. And then Daryl had another errand in the morning where he had to go to Putrajaya. That's where all the government offices are here, Putrajaya. So he had to go to Putrajaya to go to a government office to do something with his passport. So that ended up being the first thing we needed to do in the day, which meant an earlier start than we had planned. And mixed in there, Daryl had looked for a couple of interesting places we could check out nearby, like a coffee shop and a place to have lunch, things like that. So that was the day. And then Daryl messaged me, and he was going to be here at my hotel at 7:25 in the morning. I went outside, and I was astonished to see how busy the roads were, just jammed. I've never seen them that busy. It was just like a really high, heavy traffic day. I don't know why, and it stayed that way for most of the day. When we came back in at the end of the day, I guess we ran into rush hour, and the morning was rush hour as well, but I've never seen the rush hour that busy before. And then in the afternoon, the rain. There's like every day now, there's like an afternoon thunderstorm, and so that slowed traffic down. So it seemed like a very slow day in terms of driving, which I didn't mind, of course. I'm not the one doing the driving. I was just kicking back in the BYD Atto, and just relaxing and talking Daryl's ear off, as I tend to do. So I went outside, and I talked about the embassy here. There's the embassy in Nepal, and every morning there's a group of men there, Nepalese, like immigrant workers. They're from Nepal, but they live and work in Malaysia, and they have to do something at the embassy. And every morning there's a group of them there, and yesterday morning there was more than I've ever seen. It was a big, big day, maybe because it was Friday and everybody's trying to do it before the weekend. But anyway, there's a lot of men there. And they've all got the big folders. And it's always interesting to me that whenever a group of men gather, or people gather in one place routinely, entrepreneurs will see that and they start offering services. So yesterday morning, for the first time, I saw a man walking up and down. There's a big lineup of people outside the door, and he was walking up and down, and he had things that he was selling, like stationery, like blue folders and envelopes and things like that. You know, they have all these papers they have to keep organized. So he was selling these blue slip-in folders to keep all your papers organized, you know. Or he was giving them, maybe he worked for the embassy and he was giving them away. I just assumed he was selling them. And I see that happen quite often. I quite admire these people when I see that entrepreneurial spirit. A spirit that in my lifetime I've generally lacked, I suppose. And then Daryl showed up right on time and hopped in his car, and we started our journey. It's about an hour, and I think it's about an hour drive, because it was a busy day, to get to Putrajaya. Ended up being like an hour and 15 minutes. He had to stop off somewhere to do something else. So it was an hour and 15 minutes by the time we got to Putrajaya. And Daryl's plan was to drop me off at a park. So there's a beautiful, very large park on the river in Putrajaya. And since Daryl had to go hang out at government offices, like, what am I going to do there? So he just dropped me off at the park. And when I started the day, my plan was to record the day on video and make a Planet Doug vlog out of the day. And I was shooting video all this time, but things didn't really work out for me. I was sick the entire day. I didn't realize I was ill until I arrived in Putrajaya, and I arrived in the park, but maybe more about that later. So I wasn't feeling the best. And I don't know, it felt like the day didn't really come together, mainly because I wasn't in the mood. I wasn't feeling it, and like with the camera. And I think because in the morning I did record a behind the scenes video, so that actually took more of my energy than I realized. And I was speaking for like an hour on that video. So by the time I, got together with Daryl, and now it was like, it didn't feel like, hey, welcome to another day on Planet Doug, because a lot of my energy in terms of speaking into the GoPro, I'd already used it up. I only have a limited amount of energy, so maybe that fed into it as well. So yeah, it didn't really click for me throughout the day. I haven't looked at the video I shot yet. And at the end of the day, there was no real, I didn't film like a conclusion to the day, because I guess when we were driving back from Putrajaya, I didn't have the camera running. I didn't record our conversation. I mean, we were in the car for an hour and a half coming back, and an hour and 15 minutes going there. And I can't, I could record our entire conversation and post that as a, my dinner with Andre kind of video, but I didn't do that. And then when we got into KL, it was pouring rain and massive, traffic congestion right outside my hotel as well. And I didn't want Daryl to pull over to the side of the road and park his car so that I could, get out easily. And because then he has to rejoin traffic. It seemed like it would be a real hassle to pull off the road and then have to get back into the lanes again. So once the car came to a stop, because there was like a red light or something, I just said goodbye to Daryl, popped open, and I just jumped out and I walked to the hotel. So I didn't really get a conclusion to the video either. And then I was using an umbrella, and everything I had to put my camera away before I got out of the car because it was pouring rain. I didn't want my microphones and everything to get destroyed by the rain. So I put everything away, and then, I don't know, I got back in my room and I unpacked, and I never got around to concluding the day. So I don't really have a conclusion to the video either. Who knows, I may put it together, I may not. I'll find out later today. I'll take a look at the video that I have and see if I want to do something with it. But I was filming throughout the day, and then Daryl, dropped me off at this beautiful park, thinking I could include it in the Planet Doug video. I'm not a big park guy, but yeah, it's a beautiful spot, beautiful river. There's a Chinese-Malaysian friendship garden, classic Chinese architecture and gateways and koi pond and waterfalls. And the bridges are quite beautiful. The main bridge into Putrajaya is architecturally very attractive and very dramatic. So I took video of that and pictures of that. And I was using Relive. It's an app that I have on my phone, and Relive allows you to record your journey, whether you're hiking, driving, cycling, whatever you're doing, relive using GPS, tracks wherever you go. And throughout the day, if you take pictures and video clips after the day is over and you stop recording, you can then take those photos and insert them. So it's basically a map like Google Maps, and it shows where you went, and then it stops from time to time and you insert pictures, and then it continues. And so I was shooting relive all day as well. So I was doing that at the park, taking pictures I was going to include in relive later. And I was doing a lot of technical testing, which I tend to do a lot. Daryl had brought his Deity D4 mini microphone again. I had done some testing with it before, but I had screwed up because I had my GoPro set to a microphone setting that wasn't appropriate, I thought. I had it set to standard plus. I didn't know it was set to standard plus, but it doesn't work very well. You're supposed to have it set to standard with like a GoPro, not standard plus. So the video was all distorted and didn't sound good. So it wasn't a very good test. So I wanted to do it again. So while I was there, I used the D4 Mini and I mounted it on my GoPro and I combined it with various microphones and did a whole series of tests. I learned a lot. I didn't make any progress in terms of coming up with like the perfect microphone setup because nothing I tried worked. I won't go through all the combinations because that would take an hour. I tried so many different combinations of microphones, different settings, different this, different that, and none of them worked. The only option, in the end, my conclusion was the Rode, with whatever its faults are it's still the best option. Everything else I tried to do, it just did not work. But the problem with the Rode for me is that it records my voice very well. Even when I'm out on the street, I like it. But it's designed to pick up my voice, but not the voices of other people. So like if Daryl and I are walking together and I'm filming the two of us together, it doesn't really record his voice naturally or at an adequate volume. So I'm trying to find a system where I can use the Rode and capture audio from around me at the same time. So I'm trying to combine two microphones or find one microphone that can do both. And nothing I tried worked for various reasons. The one big option that remains is something called the Deity Duo. And there's another one from a company called Muvo Duo, maybe. No, I think it's Muvo Double Microphone. They weren't very imaginative in their name. But these duos have a front-facing microphone and a rear, and costs $70 to $100 US, so they're not cheap. But it does seem like it would be the best of all worlds if it sounds good. Records me and records in the other direction as well. So no matter where I'm pointing the camera, if I'm talking to someone, it's recording their voice and mine at the same time, and the two mics are fed together. And on your system, on your camera, you can have the two microphones inputs separated, left and right channel, or you can have them merged and they go on the same channel. I think it's your choice. I know the Rode, I can do that. I can choose to have it split or merged. Maybe the Duo, by default, it only splits them left-right channels, which is fine. You can work with that. But when I was testing the D4 Mini, I ran into a problem with, it doesn't work. It doesn't combine with the Rode, so I can't use that one anyway. But the bigger problem was you have to have a big furry windscreen because they're very sensitive to wind of all kinds. It can't be bare. It has to have some sort of a cover. And then when you mount it on the camera, GoPro has a wide angle, it shows up in the video. And even, this is something I discovered, even if you bend your microphone mount or put on a platform to move it farther away from the camera and now it's out of view, it still will go into view because the way these action cameras work, their digital stabilization works in such a way that the field of view might be this big, but they're only using a very small section in the middle. And because they're only using such a small part of the sensor, when the camera moves, they have this huge range of movement. And that's where the amazing stabilization comes into play. But then if you're holding this is very technical, but if you're holding onto your GoPro and you're filming and then you turn it, there's a lag because of the stabilization. Like if you turn the camera, you can see it takes a second for the video to catch up with the camera movement. The video field of view doesn't move as fast as you move the camera. It stays behind. So you move the camera, boom, but the video is still pointing in this direction, and then it gradually moves over and centers on the new direction. And it does that to add a very high level of stabilization. But because you've moved the camera so dramatically this way, but the field of view is still pointing in this direction, suddenly the wind cat, the dead cat, which you thought was way off to the side, is suddenly right in the video. It's like you move the GoPro, and now the windscreen appears, and then as the stabilization kicks in and the field of view moves over, then the windscreen slowly moves out of frame. But if you move the camera up or down or left and right, every time you do that, the windscreen pops into view just for a second, and then it slowly moves out of frame. It's like, So if I did, buy the Deity Duo, which has two windscreens, one on the front, one on the back, the front one would show up in the video all the time, unless you build some kind of a big platform that sticks it way out, and then to keep it out of the video frame. It's like, technical problems. They're not really designed to mount them on an action camera. If you mount them on a big camera, then it's fine, because the windscreen is often behind the lens. But with action cameras, they're in front of the lens. So yeah, maybe there'd be a way to move it back. Or I was thinking you can get a different windscreen. The ones they give you are like the big, fluffy ones. They work the best. But maybe, I don't know, Daryl was talking about this. Maybe you can just take a pair of scissors and, give it a haircut and make it smaller, and it would still be good enough. Or you can buy more of a foam one and a much smaller one. It won't get in anyway. So I did all the video testing in the park, and that's when suddenly I was walking around and I was suddenly clutching my stomach. It was like, oh, ow, pain in my stomach. And I thought, oh no, I have a very sensitive stomach, and I'm not very good about my diet either. So I get sick quite a bit. Whether it's my fault or there's something wrong with me, I don't know. You can call it IBS perhaps, though I do find in general the modern tendency to give things a name. It's like if you're always sick to your stomach, well, I must have IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. But it makes it sound like it's an established disease, that can be cured or treated. But all it really means is I get sick all the time. But anyway, yesterday in the park, I suddenly got sick. So I'm looking for, the bathroom in the park. And luckily they had one. And I won't go into all my bathroom adventures, but yeah, it was something. I had to go back 3 times to these bathrooms and go through the whole bathroom adventure every time. And Daryl, his errand at the government offices took longer than he expected. He thought it might be an hour, but government offices, he told a little bit of the story later on. You always wonder how these things happen, where he went to this office to do what he needed to do, and they says, oh no, you can't do, well, you first have to go here and do this. And they send him to another building 20 minutes away or something. And he drives all the way over there, and he says, okay, I tried to do this here, but he said, they told me I have to go here to do this first. And then that new office, they'll say, oh, no, you don't do that here. You do that, It's like, how do they not know where you go to do what? I mean, how many years have they been working at that job? And yet every time you get sent to an office to do something, you get to that office, and that office will tell you, oh, no, not here. I know what you mean, but we don't do that here. We do it there. They might even send you back to the first place and say, no, they do that. And you say, well, they told me to come here. And you go back there, and they say, I thought I told you to go there. Well, yeah, they told me to come back here. And they, it's like, and this kind of happened to Daryl. So he was gone, I don't know, maybe 2 hours longer. I still, maybe 2.5 hours. I still enjoyed my time in the park because there was a vending machine there. And my big beef with vending machines is sometimes the drinks aren't cold enough. And if I get a Coke or a Pepsi or something, if it comes out of the machine and it's like lukewarm, oh, it's like my life is over. It's like, oh no, because I was so looking forward to that ice cold Coke. In this case, there was like a bicycle cafe. I mean, this park is very popular for riding bicycles. You could rent bicycles there, and you can rent electric scooters, and because it's a big park, there are these very well-known Putrajaya mosques, big, beautiful, ornate mosques, and they're right along the river. And if you rent one of these bicycles or electric scooter, you can ride around this whole area and visit the mosques, and you can see a lot of things there. So there are cafes there, and I guess they're only open on the weekend, though. There was like a bicycle cafe right beside the river, and it was closed, but you could still sit at the tables. So as I was doing all my microphone testing, I would go there to get all my microphones set up, and then I would get a can of ice cold coffee from the vending machine, and then I would take it over to the, it was a nice little cafe on the river, not open, but I could sit at the tables, and I sat there, and I would review all the video clips and drink my coffee, and then I got a Coke, and then I'm making my trips back and forth to the bathroom. And then Daryl was finished with all his work. He came back to get me. And from there, we had lunch. We drove to Oasis Square. Very interesting place. Looks like an older district of Kuala Lumpur. In Damansara, I think, Oasis Square in Damansara. And it's a square, a whole set of buildings and shopping centers and cafes and restaurants, pubs, and around a water area, with fountains and ponds. And yeah, there's a lot to see, a lot to do there. And we had lunch at one of the restaurants. We had nasi, couscous, and curry puffs. And at that time, I did set up the camera again. I mean, I was filming all of this off and on, and I grabbed the GoPro and mounted it somewhere, so it was filming the table. And Daryl and I were having a conversation. I had my Rode on me, and then I mic'd him up, put my Rode number 2 on him, so it would record our conversations as we enjoyed our lunch. From there, we had a coffee at Starbucks. Daryl had picked out a special cafe. The last time we went out on a whole series, like a day trip, he found this amazing cafe of, I forget the name of it now, vintage, like audio vintage. It's in my other, it's in a video on Planet Doug. Oh, no, it isn't. He filmed a vlog that day, and he showed it. And I think I talked about it in behind the scenes, and I may have done a short about it or posted photographs of it. I think I posted photographs of it. But anyway, it was a vintage audio cafe. You could have really nice coffee there, but the decor was all filled with, old tape decks, reel-to-reel decks, albums, cassette tapes, everything about music. And they play classic blues and jazz and, very nice place. But this time, Daryl had picked out a book cafe. He found it online, and the walls are just like, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and thousands of books, paperback and hardback books. Unfortunately, nobody reads anymore. Nobody reads paper books anymore, and that cafe had closed permanently. So I guess they didn't attract enough customers. And that area did look a little bit, we went into a mall to find that coffee shop, and it felt kind of abandoned. I mean, there were businesses in there, like I saw a hair salon, had a lot of customers and things. But as you kind of felt like you were in a very quiet place. It's not like the big malls of Kuala Lumpur, always jammed with people day and night. This one felt a little bit at the end of it's not a popular mall anymore. So it was no surprise the cafe was closed. So we ended up at a Starbucks instead. But then came the highlight of the day, and something I enjoyed very much. Perhaps Daryl or other people wouldn't understand why I would enjoy something like this so much. But basically, we just went to a car dealership and hung out at the dealership for 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours, somewhere in there. But I don't generally do that. I'm not a car owner. I've never bought a car at a car dealership. Like, I've never gone through that process, so I don't even know anything about it. Everything I know about it, I see in movies and TV shows, where you go to the dealer, and of course they always portray the car salesman as quite, sleazy, especially used cars, I guess, a used car lot. They always show them as trying to rip you off and things like that. But I don't know what it's like to go to an actual dealer and say, I want to buy a brand new car, and have the sales clerk, show you all the cars, and then you have to talk about the price and do all the paperwork, and whether you're paying, you're getting a car loan. I mean, to me, that's the real world, and I've never been a part of the real world very much. So I've never done that. So for me, just to go to a dealership is a lot of fun. And this one, even more fun because it's BYD, which is, a car company on the move these days. It's in the spotlight in media. BYD cars are very popular. People are interested in them. And on that particular day, yesterday, they were having a sales event. So it was much, the atmosphere was like a little BYD carnival going on at the dealership. So I think the coffee lounge, which is right on the showroom floor. So in the coffee lounge, you're just right there with the cars and with all the customers looking at cars and all the sales clerks running around doing their thing. You're right in the thick of it, but normally the coffee lounge would have, I think, nasi lemak. They always have like a tray of nasi lemak, and then they have the machines, push button machines, where they will get you a cappuccino or latte or tea, coffee, whatever you want. They have bottles of water and cold teas. It's like a little cafe. But since this was a sales event day, they had a lot more. So they had a big tray of finger food, and I love that. They had like egg salad sandwiches, tuna sandwiches, the little triangular sandwiches that they make. You're at a deli or something like that. They had chocolate cake. You could get little squares of chocolate cake, and I got a cappuccino and an egg salad sandwich and a tuna salad sandwich, and of course I had to run to the bathroom. I wasn't over my sickness. I'm still not over it today. I'm still sick today. But luckily, they had a beautiful bathroom, big, clean, modern, spacious bathroom. So I was in there for a while. Daryl was out of the coffee lounge like, what in the world happened to Doug? Because I didn't tell him I had been sick in the park. And he's like, where did you go? Like, what, did you use the bathroom back at, he didn't say that, but he could have asked me, did you use the bathroom back at your hotel? Like, where did you go and why were you gone for so long? But I still enjoyed the cappuccino, got a bottle of water, snacks, chocolate cake. And then I got to talk with Daryl about BYD cars because I don't know anything about them. And they have a big display there. They actually have a cut open version of the car, like the bottom part, the platform. I guess that's what they call it. It's the BYD platform. And because it's an electric car, you can take the top half of the car and just lift it off. And you're left with a very flat platform because most of the base of the car is battery. It's just a big, flat, rectangular battery, wheels at the front, wheels at the back, and then the motor and the transmission. But that whole thing is like this, it looks just like a platform, like a foundation that you would build on. And they had one of those on display, and you could see the battery and see the engine or the motor. And I've never seen that before, so I took a great deal of interest in that. And they had a big display, talking about all the features of the BYD. The BYD EV, I guess BYD stands for Build Your Dreams. And I have thoughts about that as a name. When I first saw BYD and I saw the logo, I thought, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. BYD rolls off the tongue. I like the design of the logo. And then I was told, well, it stands for Build Your Dreams. And I go, I'm not a big fan of all the cliches about follow your dreams, live your dreams, the whole dream thing. So Build Your Dreams as the name of a car company. I thought, okay, I think you could have done better than that. That could be the slogan of the car company, but it feels like you could have chosen a better name, and then you could have had, name of the company and then Build Your Dreams, But anyway, For whatever reason, they went with Build Your Dreams as the name of the company, but everyone just says BYD. But of course, it's an electric vehicle, which is EV. So when you watch YouTube reviews of these cars, everyone is saying like BYD EV, BYD EV, BYD EV. You know, they got a lot of VDEB, a lot of E sounds in there. It always strikes me as kind of funny. But I didn't realize this. Daryl explained it to me that ATO is a marine term, like a fish or something. In fact, I'm going to look it up right now. So I'm going to dive onto the internet. I'll be right back. No, nothing. For ATO, nothing comes up. There doesn't appear to be a fish or ocean creature of any kind, unless it's a Chinese name, which is probably what's going on here. It's probably a Chinese name for a type of fish, because Daryl was telling me that the BYD company has chosen a marine theme for their cars, and he was saying a brand new one is coming out soon called the Dolphin. And I watched a video review of the Dolphin this morning, and the guy was going over the design, like the exterior lights. Everything has an ocean theme, like it's supposed to look like an ocean wave. And when you get inside, everything inside is sort of curved and made to look like fish. And basically an ocean theme for the car as a whole. So that's why it's called the Dolphin. But I think Daryl told me that the whole company does this. So the ATO is part of an ocean theme, but I can't find anything about the ATO. ATO. Yeah, they don't sell the Dolphin in Malaysia yet. It's going to be available soon. But yeah, I enjoyed my time at BYD very much. And while we were there, Daryl turned to me with his smartphone and said, "Hey, have you heard about Threads?" I'm like, "Nope." I mean, he was actually, doing things, and I guess he was installing Threads on his phone. And I was like, I have no idea what you're doing or what you're talking about. And I guess everyone out there probably knows about it already, but I wasn't aware of it at all. But I guess Mark Zuckerberg and Meta just launched a brand new social media app to compete with Twitter. And since I was sitting there with Daryl and he was downloading Threads, and I thought, I don't know, it doesn't hurt. I just want to see what it's all about. So I downloaded Threads as well. And I guess it's connected tightly with Instagram, which from what I've seen online, there's a video from Mr. Who's the Boss, who does a whole in-depth look at Threads. And I watched the whole video this morning. It's really, really good. He knows everything about this stuff, and he breaks it down very, very clearly. What Threads is, how it relates to Twitter, how it relates to Meta, and how it relates to Instagram. He goes into it, the pros and cons. And he tracks the progression of all these social media websites. For example, I remember when Facebook came out, and at the beginning, it was all about connecting with friends and family. It was a social media site where you were posting pictures for your friends and family to see, and then that's what it was. And then over time, of course, like now when I go to Facebook, it's just it's all advertising, and I'm seeing photos and videos from companies and people I don't know. I don't know who any of these people are. So it's no longer a tight social community of friends and family. Has just become a place where they try and keep feeding you videos and photos and inspirational quotes and memes to keep you on Facebook as long as possible and keep you scrolling. And to be honest, I hardly ever go to Facebook anymore for that reason. And Instagram, I guess, followed the same pattern, where at the beginning it was all pictures of your friends and family, and then slowly but surely it just became corporate and commercial. And basically, I think as Mr. Who's the Boss says, let's turn that off. I don't know if that's better or worse, but I think I was off before. Follow the money. All these websites start following the money, which is logical, and then it changes them. And right now, he was talking a lot about how this is the perfect time for Meta to release Threads in a competition with Twitter, because just the way Twitter is, people's feelings about Twitter, and now Threads can come along and be a new, exciting, fresh alternative. And of course, at the beginning, it's going to be all about connecting you with your friends and family, just like all the other ones. And it feels like a breath of fresh air. It's like, oh, Meta. And then suddenly you're chatting with your friends. Everybody's on Meta now. All your friends are on Meta, and it feels better, it feels nicer. But of course, over time, it'll just turn into Facebook, and it's going to turn into Twitter, and who knows. So, but anyway, it seems to have been an extremely successful launch. Probably much better than they were even expecting. I think if Zuckerberg was concerned about this in any way, I think he's out there doing cartwheels and singing and dancing and having drinks and just celebrating, because the launch seems to have been very successful. And I don't really understand these things at all. I try to use Instagram. I'll try to work it into my daily life, where I might post a video to YouTube, but then I try to take that same experience, whatever that video was about, and take pictures and post that to Instagram and try to do them both. But it's just exhausting. I just run out of energy, and I end up posting to Instagram for a while, and then I'll realize, 3 weeks have gone by and I've just totally forgot Instagram exists. It's just not, I don't have enough room in my brain. I can do YouTube, and that's all I can do. It's like, I don't have the energy for the rest of it. I can't think about all these other things. But so it comes and goes, and so I'm not an active Facebook user. I've got a Planet Doug Facebook page. And when I set it up, and like even now, if I post a video to YouTube, these days I haven't even been posting a link to my Facebook page, Planet Doug Facebook page, which is like the minimum you should do. And for some reason, I don't even do that anymore. So I don't know a whole lot about these sites. I don't use them very much. But Mr. Who's the Boss, he's deep into it. And he knows everything. And that video of him talking about threads and their strategy. And I guess a big thing about it is that it's linked with Instagram, because Instagram is also owned by Meta. And you can sign up for threads automatically. You don't have to do anything. Like you download the app and say, okay, open, and it says, sign in with your Instagram account. And you just go, oh. And normally I never do that. I don't understand what that means. Like I'll be signing up for some online account, and it will say, oh, do you want to sign in with your Facebook ID or your Google ID? And that freaks me out. I'm like, no, I don't want these all to be linked like that. I got in trouble doing something like that in the past, where they asked me, do you want to sync your contacts from here to there? And for whatever reason, I said yes at that time, and it just destroyed everything. I don't know what happened after that point. So it's like, why I'm signing up for a photo storage site online, and it says, do you want to use your Facebook account to sign up? And I'm like, well, why would I even do that? So I always just use, I just open up a new account. I just start from nothing and put in my name and email address, and I just open an account. I don't want it connected with Facebook. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. But in this case, Meta owns Instagram, and they own Threads. And they set it up so that if you already have an Instagram account, I think in order to even open Threads, you must have an Instagram account. And then you use your Instagram account to open Threads, and it just carries everything over. Your profile picture, even your followers, anyone you're connected with on Instagram, I guess, just gets carried over to Threads. So that's very easy. But Mr. Who's the Boss, as I said, he knows about this stuff. And he was reading some of the terms and agreements, and he saw that, you give away a lot of permissions. And one thing you give away is the right to delete threads. Like if you don't want to have Threads anymore and you want to delete your account, the only way you can delete it is if you also delete your Instagram account. So they basically, once they've got you on Threads, you're trapped there, unless you want to lose Instagram as well, So there's all these ins and outs and things going on. And I guess Zuckerberg has announced that Threads right now is not monetized. There's nothing financial about it. There are no ads, for example. I guess maybe they're mining data. How could they not? But the implication was they're not making money off it right now, and they're not going to monetize until they reach 1 billion users. which is a huge number for a platform like that. I think Twitter, is it Twitter or Instagram? I think Mr. Who's the Boss said one of them has 500 million, subscribers. It was either it couldn't be Twitter. Twitter must have more than 500 million, or maybe it was Twitter. But so if Twitter or Instagram only has 500 million, and they're huge, for Mark Zuckerberg to say we will not monetize until we reach 1 billion means he's got high expectations for Threads. So I downloaded Threads, and it's there. I have a Planet Doug Threads now, and a few people that I know are suddenly following me on Threads, but I think that's happening automatically because they were following me on Instagram. They're just automatically on Threads now or whatever. But anyway, as soon as I opened my Threads account, I saw all these people that I know, even high school friends of mine. It's like, oh, so-and-so has just followed you on Threads. Oh, so-and-so. And I'm wondering, wow, that's interesting, because I haven't posted anything. It's not like I didn't post any photos or text or videos or anything. So there's nothing on Planet Doug Threads, and yet all these people are following me. And then I realized, well, this is probably happening just automatically because of Instagram, But anyway, I found that kind of interesting, and that was part of the day as well. So now I have a Threads account, for better or worse. And I think I opened a Twitter account ages ago. It's even called Planet Doug. I have a Planet Doug Twitter account, but I'm not logged into it. I never use it. I think of Twitter as an American thing. Everybody in the US is just passionate. They use Twitter for everything. And here in Malaysia, Twitter seems irrelevant. Like, I don't know anyone that uses Twitter. No one talks about it. And yet in the US, it's always trending topics. Oh, what's trending today? And they go to Twitter and they look at what's trending on Twitter. And that is a gauge of what is or isn't successful. Like if a new movie comes out, the new Indiana Jones movie, and it's not even trending on Twitter, that means it's a flop. It's not even trending on Twitter. So Americans are always looking at Twitter. And of course, Twitter has become quite odd recently. It's extremely political. People are talking a lot about how negative the space is now, particularly since Elon Musk purchased it, and it's kind of lifted a lot of the controls and censorship so that anybody can now post anything. It just seems like a very toxic environment is what I hear from other people. And then Threads is presenting itself as a nicer, safer environment. So they're basically talking to Twitter users and say, yeah, come on over here. It's nicer here. We're nicer over here on Threads. And it seems to be a very successful launch, gaining tens of millions of Mr. Who's the Boss said something else quite interesting, which I didn't even realize. I'll have to look in a minute. He said that one of their incentives is that the user numbers, like you get a user ID, like you choose your own nickname or whatever, and I chose Planet Doug just to keep it consistent with everything else. But they also give you a user ID, and your ID number is in sequence with when you signed up. So the first person to sign up for Threads would have had, user ID 0000000001, and the second person would have 00000. So 2. So your ID number is like a badge of honor of being, I was the first person to sign up for Threads, or I was within the first 100,000 people. I was within the first 1 million people. So there's like an incentive to sign up as early as possible so that your number, once Threads reaches 1 billion people, being number 50,000 to sign up or being within the first 10 million is like, hey, I was within the first 10 million. It's kind of a bragging point, I guess. So I think Mr. Who's the Boss was saying he was upset because he was learning about Threads in the evening, but he didn't sign up at that point. He didn't open his account. He went to bed, he went to sleep, and he woke up in the morning. And in the morning, okay, now let's open the account. But had he done it 8 hours earlier, he would have been within the first million or something. But now, because he waited a whole night, now it's gone beyond 10 million. So his number is, he lost out on bragging points. But I don't know what my number is. I didn't know the number was significant. I'll take a look and find out. Well, and then my time at BYD dealership came to an end. Daryl's car was finished. Interestingly, they took his car into the building and raised it to an upper level to work on it, which I find very futuristic and very high tech. I guess Canada is always a little bit different from a lot of countries in Asia because there's much more space in Canada. So I think it's more economically feasible for companies to spread out horizontally. They can buy more land and everything can be happening on the main floor. But I think land in Kuala Lumpur is quite a bit more expensive. So even a car dealership has to stack. They own this much land and they increase their square footage by using floors. So when we were parking there, we saw an opening into a garage and it was a car elevator in there. So eventually, when they worked on Daryl's car, they had the key and they drove the car into this garage, and then the elevator lifted the car up to an upper floor, and then I guess they plug in computers because everything on this car is computerized. It's basically like a smartphone on wheels, because it's electric and it has its own SIM card, which I didn't realize, but that makes sense. So your car has its own SIM card and Wi-Fi and has its own apps. It's basically a computer on wheels. So of course, if they're going to do a servicing, they have to plug it into a computer, and they're probably running all kinds of computer programs to make sure that everything's working properly. I'd like to have seen that. That would have been interesting to see. But anyway, they raised his car up to a top level on the elevator, and then they brought it down again, and it was all done, ready to go. According to Daryl, there were no issues. There's nothing wrong with the car, nothing that had to be worked on they updated whatever they needed to update. But didn't cost anything. I guess if there was a major repair that wasn't covered by his purchase agreement, he might have had to have paid something to get work done, but no, everything was working fine. So we hung out for a few hours, had some cappuccino, had some chocolate cake. Daryl had the nasi lemak, I had the egg salad and tuna fish sandwiches, and then, when we're all done, hopped in the car and zoomed off. So it was a very interesting day, and as I said, we hit congestion when we got back to KL, major traffic jams, and we're driving very slowly. Daryl, I guess everyone in Malaysia is a big user of Waze. And when every time, like Daryl has dropped me off here at this hotel quite a few times because we've gone out on these, like for morning, breakfast, or lunch, or these day trips quite often. And then sometimes he'll drop me off at an MRT station and I can just take the MRT back. But depending on where we are, if it's convenient for him, he can drop me off right here. And every time he does that, I am completely lost. I have no idea where we are. And I feel like I know KL a little bit, but I know it from the point of view of the LRT and MRT system. I don't know the road system at all. And then he'll be driving, and it feels like we're going through a maze, like we're a mouse in a maze trying to find the cheese, because he goes down here, down this alleyway, behind these buildings, this way, just like a crazy, complicated, convoluted route we're following. And I get so lost, and I say it to Daryl every time. It's like, I have no idea where we are. I have no idea where you're going. And it turns out that Daryl, he knows, of course, he knows the city, and he could drive me right back to my hotel following the roads he knows. But all this zigzagging and winding in and out of back alleys and everything, it's all because Waze is telling him, go that way. Because, of course, Waze is monitoring traffic congestion and chooses the fastest way to get there. Not the straightest way, but the fastest way. So all these back alleys and things, like even Daryl doesn't know where we're going. He just put in the address of my hotel when we're back at BYD, and then he gets the route, and then he just follows. He's got this big display there, and he can just glance over it. Oh, I'm supposed to go down this alley and down this one and this one, and that's how we end up back here. And I'm lost 90% of the time. I don't know where we are. And there's such a complex highway system here in KL. It's overwhelming for me. But yeah, when we got here, pouring rain, as I said, and I hopped out of the car and came back in here. I had an interesting encounter when I got back at the hotel, because there was one of the hotel staff was sitting in the lobby area. And I met him a few weeks ago here, and he used to work at this hotel, running the front desk. You know, he was basically the manager of this hotel, running the place. And then out of nowhere, he disappeared. He just sort of vanished. And he was the guy I was communicating with on WhatsApp. Like every time I booked the room on Agoda or something, I'd have to get the receipts from Agoda and send it to the hotel. And I was sending it to him on WhatsApp. But then I never saw him in the hotel anymore. It's like he was never around, never at the front desk. There were different guys there. And all the staff here are from Sri Lanka. So they're all, you know, workers from Sri Lanka. They're here on a work visa, and they, you know, for whatever reason, all the staff are from Sri Lanka, and he was too. And then I thought, oh, maybe the other guy, the very first guy I met here, he went back to Sri Lanka. He disappeared too, and I asked about him. Oh, he went home. He went back to Sri Lanka. And then the guy who replaced him, the one I'm talking about, he disappeared. And I was wondering, oh, did he go back to Sumatra as well? And I asked him on WhatsApp, because now he's one of my contacts, and I sent him a message saying, hey, I don't see you at the hotel anymore. Where are you? And he says, oh, they transferred me to our other hotel. So the owner owns this hotel and another one, or maybe several, I don't know. But he moved to a different one. So he's still part of this company. He's just not at this hotel anymore. And yeah, I know him on a friendly basis. I know him through WhatsApp. So he had a big smile on his face when he saw me. He said, ah, and this guy does YouTube. He has a YouTube channel. So we bonded on that. He uses a Sony a6400 camera and a GoPro Hero 7. And when I saw him during the rainstorm, when I came back yesterday, he had just come in from a filming session. He was out in KL using his GoPro. And he was, doing some filming, I assume, for his YouTube channel. He does very cinematic, professional kind of work, like not typical vlogging. He's much more cinematic. But yeah, so that was kind of interesting to run into him again. And he's going back to Sri Lanka as well in a couple of weeks, just for a visit, and then he'll be coming back here again. So that is how my day ended yesterday with Daryl. And I think I'm going to wind this down here. Of course, I have a lot more thoughts, a lot more things I'm thinking about that I could talk about. But yeah, I think that's the most important story right now, in terms of my daily journal and life update, what I did yesterday. So I had another really nice day out with Daryl. Yeah, I enjoyed that very much. So shutting down once more, and I'll see you in the next video.